हेलो एवरीवन, मेरा नाम है जतिन चौधरी और ये है रेडियो एलजे 90.8 एफएम। हमारा ये प्रोग्राम है बातें स्टार्टअप की। तो हर बार हम अलग अलग फाउंडर्स को लेके आते हैं। आज हम थोड़े अलग इंडस्ट्री लीडर्स को लेके आ रहे हैं। अभी M&A की बहुत बात हो रही है, स्टार्टअप बात होती है तो वो लोग बिजनेस स्केल करते हैं, लेकिन एग्जिट्स भी आती है, तभी वेल्थ क्रिएट होती है, तभी इकोसिस्टम बनता है। तो आज हमारे पास दो ऐसे गेस्ट हैं जो इस सब्जेक्ट के एक्सपर्ट्स है। हमारे पास है भाविन भगत, जो इंडिया बीज के को फाउंडर है, and Dr. Savan Godiyawala, जो is a ex investment banking partner at Deloitte and visiting faculty at IIM Ahmedabad, IIT गांधीनगर। और ये दोनों के साथ मेरा थोड़ा कॉन्टेक्स्ट है। जब ईचाई मैंने 2009 में स्टार्ट किया था, तो ईचाई के शुरुआत के सालों में 2010-11 में सावन भाई थ्रू इज मल्टीपल एफर्ट जो जहाँ पे मेंटर करते थे, आई वॉज अ बेनिफिशियरी ऑफ दैट, जहाँ पे उनको मिलता था और बहुत सारा सपोर्ट मिला था, एंकरेजमेंट मिला था एक्चुअली, कि एक बहुत बड़ा इंडस्ट्री लीडर इज एक्नॉलेजिंग योर एफर्ट्स। और भाविन भाई 2012-13 वो टाइम पे हम लोग मिले थे, एंड ही इज बीन अ ग्रेट सपोर्ट। ही इज अ प्रेसिडेंट ऑफ टाई अहमदाबाद आल्सो। तो मुझे हर बार भाविन भाई 1-2 ऐसे इंट्रोडक्शन कराते हर महीने में, जो जिससे मेरा काम बहुत अच्छा होता है। तो आज आई एम सो हैप्पी कि दोनों एक साथ गेस्ट है। भाविन भाई, टेल अस अबाउट योर बैकग्राउंड अबाउट इंडिया बीज।
Okay. Thank you, Jatin, for the opportunity. This is my first time in a radio station on the other side. So our journey started as a company in 2013-14. But the genesis of the IndiaBizForSale.com platform was in the year 2010. I've told in multiple times, like my father had a joint venture with another company, which was incepted in 2006. And in 2010, they had some issues. At that time, they wanted to exit from the business. And we realized that it was so painful at that point of time on how to go about business exit. You can't tell your employees, you can't tell your friends and family generally. Obviously, you can't tell your clients or vendors. Otherwise, problem ho jata hai. So at the same time, you want to find buyers. So that time we realized that the ecosystem in India is very difficult. It's not there, especially if you want to exit from a small to medium sized businesses. And we researched outside India kya hota hai, and we realized that outside India it's a very very well oiled ecosystem where there are a lot of business brokers, there are investment bankers, there are advisors, there are investors, there are investor groups, there are institutional investors who buy these businesses. And entrepreneurs as well, they have a very open mindset in terms of wealth creation for the family via business exit. Anyway, so we thought that we should bring that kind of ecosystem to India. And we were not the first one, but I think possibly the timing was not bad. So we started it in year 2014 as a first online platform. And it's doing okay since then.
More than a decade, eh? So you would have seen a lot of M&As.
Yeah, we've seen, I would have seen at least 150 plus transactions from few lakh rupees to couple of 100 crores. That's a size we have seen in past. Currently, the transactions which we see are from 50 crore to 300 crore ticket size.
Okay. Awesome. Savan bhai, like you had a firm, you've been part of Deloitte, and you've been part of a lot of other academic institutions in a mentored different capacities. What's your story?
So good question, of course, and good to be on a radio and discussing this. And Jatin, of course, you are a story, and I remember now, unlike Bhavin, I have a 40-year-old story. I'm talking about 80s. And 80s when I started my chartered accountancy after HL College of Commerce. The point was that what to do, and because out of elimination I got into becoming a chartered accountant. Fortunately, within 3 years I became a chartered accountant. No client, no library, and I started. My father had given me an office, a small office at CG Road, and that is where I started. So this was 1991. And I started, and I said that there are a lot of connections, relations, friends. So I should get business, but it is not easy for moving a chartered accountant even in an established business to another person, even though he's very close to you. So I had to think that what could be that I can. So 92 came in SEBI, and then I said, let me work on SEBI, because SEBI has no competition. Everybody would compete with me on audit, tax, company matters, etc. So I started preparing prospectuses and preparing prospectuses for already formed prospectus as if I'm replicating. And then I got lot of SEBI prospectus business, lot of merchant bankers, because everybody, the whole ecosystem was evolving. And I was known as capital markets advisor all of a sudden, 93, 4, 5. Lot of public issues came in also, and quite a many companies are under stress, and then they disappeared also few, not that my clients, but that was the ecosystem then. 94, same thing repeated, where the service tax law came into play for the first time. And I said, this strategy works. People have started knowing me, and I started writing papers on service tax. Not that I got one client also, not that I got any revenue out of it, but lot of people that I started knowing because my papers were going to places, and then people were generally asking me about service tax. The important, I would say, the break that I would have got was when the FEMA came into play. 91 onwards, there was a liberalization. 99, the new law FEMA was coming. And then, honestly, the same story I repeated. And it could be a strategy. It could also be that how do I do something different where the competition is not there. 99, I started not only writing, I also started speaking at platforms on FEMA before even FEMA became a law. And then I became a FEMA consultant of Ahmedabad. A lot of people came in for, because FERA converting into FEMA, it was always something which people felt that this is, they cannot afford to make any mistake. There could be criminal offense, and that. So that is where I got into public face, and so many seminars, conferences started happening, papers started going, and the people around, the Deloittes of the world were happening in 2000, 2001. So to 2001, 2, 3, Deloitte invited me that you're doing FEMA, you're doing capital markets that earlier you were doing. And then I, over a period of time, converted my practice from traditional into M&As. So I was more about acquisition, supporting advisory, including I would go and do SOPs also of the companies and at the ground level. But I was in advisory space more than a typical traditional compliance place. And that something gave me a break, another break, when Deloitte came to me. Deloitte says, we have an M&A happening and we need more people who would help us on the team. Deloitte always had a team, but then they needed more people. And I was there. We worked on a large assignment that I was on the buy side. Deloitte was on the buy side, where I was leading the team, I would say. And then Deloitte said, you join us. So that was another. Now I was a small pond for fish in a small pond versus this a big ocean that was happening. So I said, my interest is advisory, and why not look at it? And Deloitte said, we will make you a partner. And that is where 2004 story happened. So it was 91, 2004, 13 years. That also need to say that 13 years, every single Sunday I have worked in my first 13 years of life. And of course, Deloitte happened, and Deloitte, of course, is not that easy, but typically we have weekends off. So for me, normally people going to Deloitte will say, oh, this lot of work. But for me, it was like feeling like a luxury because there was 7 days a week that I had worked for 13 years of my life. And then, of course, with Deloitte, I became a pure investment banker versus earlier I was doing multiple things. Then did maybe transactions all over the world. Several transactions, buy side, sell side, equity, and all kinds of transactions, large and very large transactions also. So that is the story that I am. And in the process, of course, I must also say that while we do investment banking, especially M&A transactions, we won't be a master of something, but we need to be jack of all kind of. We need to know income tax, Companies Act, capital market, foreign exchange, all the laws. Unless we know, we cannot do a transaction, because I cannot every time go and ask some specialist when I am with the client. And that is where income tax, when a lot of discussions where IIM invited me, that why don't you come and teach income tax to the IIM students? And that was also first of the kind of IIM concepts of business taxation at any IIMs, and which is going on now for 19 years. So that's the story of mine.
Wow.
Yeah.
There are many more things, but for the interest of the time, I'll not
But
probe
relating
further
to
on
the
those things.
startup, that's several strategies which are
Yep.
taken out of force.
Yes.
That I was competing with the world, and how do I get out of it and
Yeah.
strategize?
Bhavin bhai, so when a business goes for M&A, काम नहीं हो रहा, that is not the only reason, right? There are multiple reasons. What are those reasons that you observed?
यानी M&A सक्सेस नहीं होता है वो.
नहीं, M&A, why would a business want to sell itself?
Okay. So obviously, there are a variety of reasons. Mostly people would think that it is financial difficulty of the business. That is one very common one. But significantly, there is a lot of businesses which come up in the market because promoters are getting old, and the next generations, second or third generation, they have different ideas of either professional life or values in life. So they don't like to. A lot of them, they want to do something different. And those businesses are coming up for exit. There are also businesses where promoters have multiple ventures and they feel that other venture is doing much better than the first one. So I would want to exit the business which is in second priority. Also, there are people who are simply saying that, I'm not building a business for generation. I'm building a business for its good life. And I would have multiple businesses in my life. So they do it for profitable exit. So yeah, it's a variety of reasons nowadays compared to just financial. Obviously, there is another thing is where the promoter's health is not doing well or something unfortunate happens in the family and they have to sell. Those things also happen.
Okay.
After COVID, we have seen quite few of those as well, that promoter of the businesses, they suddenly pass away. And what do you do with those businesses? So they also come up in the market.
And what is the other side of this thing? Why would businesses want to buy other businesses?
Oh, yeah. So look, macroeconomic wise, there has been a lot of flow of capital in previous 5 to 10 years. And when capital had been not so expensive, a lot of businesses had been looking to access that capital and grow faster and build a bigger base, bigger product basket, bigger geographic reach, and try and protect their turf. A lot of second and third generation who have joined their businesses, they want to grow via acquisition as well. A lot of these Ivy colleges and universities, they run courses like entrepreneurship via acquisition. So there is also a flavor of growth via acquisition in a lot of these family run businesses as well as corporate. So I think that is the overall theme where merger and acquisitions happen.
Yes, that's a good primer on M&A.
Yeah.
Savan, you've been part of a lot of M&As, you observed. So M&A में एक चीज होता है ना कि कई बार क्या होता है, companies acquire, but somehow post acquisition things don't work out as the initial expectations. And for certain people, it works out. What are the patterns that you observe?
So whenever M&A happens, there are several factors, right? When Bhavin did mention that it is succession could be an issue, capital could be an issue, and to add a couple of things, sometimes technology obsolescence becomes an issue, sometimes brand becomes important, and that is where the promoters, and sometimes there is family structuring, restructuring, but important point of the acquirer's point of view. When some Tata Motors goes and acquires a Jaguar Land Rover, it is not about a Jaguar Land Rover. It's just an example, not a specific case, but it is about the ecosystem of the Land Rover. It is not just the markets. It is not just the technology. It's not just the brand. The biggest, and I do remember I was doing a transaction in Gujarat. Two companies were merging and one was acquiring another, a very large company acquiring another which was half the size. And I did 3 town halls, bringing all the people together, especially the senior executives in a proper, the companies had their own auditoriums. And the first thing we did was addressing the people, communication. Because if you ask me the question, one big reason why the M&As fail is cultural problem. It is not about more money that I have given, not about as much about the integration I could do, take advantages, the duplication that happens. M&A typically is why 1 + 1 becomes more than 2, is you remove all the duplication, you piggyback, one on another, you have bigger reach, and then you also break that competition. Hindustan Unilevers of the world, series of M&A, they would acquire. Then what they were doing is they were removing the competition from the market. And they were ensuring that the distribution channels, that they had no duplicity. The costs were reducing and the competition was going up. But culture is one biggest reason. That's one. Two is the synergy analysis. Now everybody comes and say, if I acquire this company, this is the standalone graph, and this is what my synergy if I join this business, because I know this much, I have this reach, I have this distribution, and I have this scale, I have the capital. And so my graph would be say 30%, 30 degree in angle more, and then there's a beta of that. Now, this synergy analysis, if you make a mistake on doing that analysis, or you are too optimistic, and in the optimism, you stretch yourself and give a very high value. And if you give a very high value by a leverage buyout situation, then that leveraging is one thing which is, I have seen so many cases where in the case of leveraging, you've not done your analysis where your payback period is properly calculated. A simple layman's language, if I say, if I borrow funds to be repaid over 5 years and my payback is over 10 years, I will certainly falter on prepayment of that 5 years, because I'm not going to make that much money to repay these 5 years and interest and principal. So this is the big mistake sometimes people do. Both companies profit. I have seen profitable companies going into bankruptcy. Can you imagine how this happens? Is simple, that I have profits on the books, but I have money stuck in receivables and inventories, and then I am unable to pay my banks. Banks take me to bankruptcy, because banks are not concerned about you. So the management sometimes is very important. Cultural aspect, top priority according to me. Whenever I have done transactions, I will go and find the I've seen one company, I must give an example, very, very large company, among the top 5 pharma companies of the country. And we were having discussions with their on acquisition happening in some Latin American company. So I said, you do such small acquisitions. You are now, it is, you need to have some critical size so that it is easy to give time and attention at the top. This is, we don't want to do that, because the difficulty when the large organization, the large culture need to be settled here. I would rather build that company, use that as a platform, and then build that companies to the extent. On a lighter note, the managing director told me, I want them to start speaking Hindi and Gujarati maybe, ideally. I want such cultural integration to happen before I build that. So I look at opportunities as location and platform, not as scale. I will build the scale. But culture becomes the real priority. Otherwise, M&A is quite a many fail in the real world.
Very interesting. Bhavin, you wanted to ask a question that we discussed before.
Yeah. So, Savan bhai had been very kind to us in our journey. He, one thing he said about, like, you need to know so many things about so many sectors, so many parameters of the transaction. So whenever there is some difficulty in my journey, I have reached out to him, and he kindly, helped me in those times. Also, he came and visited us a couple of times, motivated the team, helped the team to think through how to think about transaction and all that. So first of all, very much thank you for that.
No thanks.
And you should call me Bhavin only, not Bhavin bhai.
I can say Bhavin bhai.
On a radio 90.8 FM, I have to tell you Bhavin.
I am always Bhavin. Okay, so one thing I wanted to ask is, you work on large transactions. You would have worked on smaller transactions for larger organizations as well. But you would also have seen smaller transactions as well. So what do you think, is there any key difference between large transaction and small transaction, apart from the size of the transaction?
So the answer is, smaller transaction, typically the owners are hands-on. Because they can assess. Larger transaction is left to the Deloittes and McKinseys. One is doing diligence, one is doing valuation, one is helping you draft things, and then it's a big ocean that happens. So it has to be too much of meticulousness and too much of ease of communication in the larger transactions, and still end of the day something will go amiss. versus in a smaller transaction, one, the speed, naturally, smaller transaction speeds are faster. We have seen transactions. I'll give you one real example of my life. And this was at Deloitte. So a smaller transaction, quite small, under 100 crores, because generally we did larger. So that transaction, ENY means one of the big four did the diligence. And naturally there were, because this was a small company, there were quite a many of the observations, some few red flags also. The acquirer was a very large company, one of the top in the FMCG industry. Now they were looking at this company because it had built a brand, and very, it was in some regions the name that it had. This guy, and that was also a family managed company, family owned company. The meetings happen. The small company meets the large company. And then the guys gave them that these are the difficulties. Now finally, so the gentleman, the chairman says that I will meet him, I will thresh this out. So he sees this whole big list of and he says that, fine, I have seen the list. We can close the transaction tomorrow. And I'm not worried about any of this. He assessed that what could be the risk. He discussed with this fellow, are we here in any case in compliance risk? Are we in any case doing something which is outside the regulatory requirements? If not, I understand there is a cost risk. And at your age, my company also had the similar risks. So I have to understand that I should appreciate. When I came to you, shopping for you, I knew that these risks were there. It is good the guys have gone. So smaller, in a bigger transaction, this cannot happen. Bigger transaction, I will have to work on every single of the risk, mitigate them or find a mitigation plan. If I cannot have a mitigation, the transaction will not go through. The valuations are just one aspect of the transaction. The transactions do not go for a toss only because the valuation. They go for a toss for 100 things. There are contingent liabilities. You do not agree on a reps and warranties, that contingent liability. You do not agree on some non-compete clause. And you do not agree on the acquisition methodology, you do not agree on the management profile, the directorship, etc. And then also so smaller transactions, people have tendency to take chances in terms of, because they can assess the risk. Bigger transactions, and thus bigger transactions always took more time and more costs also. The cost. Another one case, one pharma company. I was advising a pharma company, and good 3 private equities we had approached for infusing a small capital, 15%. Company was also 200-300 crores. I'm talking about 2000, mid 2000. And this pharma company, they saw that who is the auditor. And then they said, we will close the transaction. We don't want to do the due diligence. They just did not do the due diligence because the private equity had competence to assess the technical capabilities, and they had people also. So that's what we have done in-house. We are comfortable. They just did not do the diligence at all. So because it was a small transaction in a small, relatively small company. Otherwise, for the sake of diligence also, everybody would be like, it's a larger transaction. So I've seen speed, I would say that the comfort that the promoter can give with a small promoter, that I am available to you if something goes wrong, and the scale. So scale, I can afford to absorb a 5-10 crore loss in my giant company when I'm acquiring a 50-100 crore company.
Right. And one more question I have, as an investment banker, if you were to tell any students who is like, there are a lot of finance stream students, they want to get into investment banking. What kind of advice would you give it to them? What kind of characteristic an investment banker should have from your perspective?
6 rupees a day investment. Read an Economic Times or any Financial Express or any Business Standard, any pink newspaper every single day. I had a lot of interns who used to come to us at Deloitte, right? The only thing that I wanted them to do is come to my office, my cabin every day, take the newspaper, because I would used to read early in the morning, 9:30 in the office, first thing I would have done. And in the lunch time, tell me only 2-3 news about any M&As that they would have. This was my I said, if you can do this And if you can sit for that 7-8 hours, you are an investment banker. Everything investment banking
आसान रास्ता बताओ.
investment banking is all about otherwise general acumen, knowledge, but not intense knowledge about it. It is you have to be doing good communication. You have to be there's some element of psychology in investment banking, because you are working with psychology of a buyer and a seller. And that psychology at times, you cannot be telling the seller that, no, this is not on. You will have to say, you are right, but how can we achieve? So you will have to work on a psychology at times when you do transactions. So such skills are more important than knowing exactly the FDI limits in the insurance that before it opened up. Kind of.
Barabar. And speed. I've seen you working. I remember the anecdote you gave me once. There was something you read in the newspaper. There was something happening in Japanese company. You reached out to your Japanese colleague on the same day, and you were talking about the speed, how it. And I think he had a meeting set up with the client in a couple of days' time or something like that.
So several occasions, as typically in the larger format professional firms, we have a system of writing emails to my way of working was different. I just picked up the phone to my Japan colleague, Germany colleague, whichsoever colleague, looking at the time, and they will not pick up, they will call back. But I have seen that as I would have done to the Ahmedabad partner or Bombay partner, I would do to the Tokyo partner and the Frankfurt partner. This happens. One case, again, a company who is into the tire industry, they came to me and they say, hey, I want to talk to somebody in intercontinental tires. So I said, I have no idea whether it is Deloitte client also or not. I picked up the phone to my German partners because they deal with, he says, tomorrow I can organize a meeting. In 24 hours, there were meeting, the call between the two guys, you can imagine. So, see, one thing we have to, the world is so much dynamic in terms of things happening, so vulnerable to any small thing. Trump will do 18% to 20 to 50 to 0, anything happen anytime. And apart from that, he has reasons to do it, and rightly so. But apart from that, there's 100 things. Tomorrow earthquake can happen. Tomorrow something can happen. Speed is the only thing for investment banking. You make a mistake, doesn't matter in your transaction. It will be solved, because end of the day, before the check is written, the mistakes won't stay. But you cannot afford to do today's job tomorrow. You cannot. The tracker was the one thing which was every day that I would look into it. Somebody would have written, Wednesday will do this, Thursday will this, but Tuesday also I inquire why this Wednesday, can we do it today? And they may say, no problem. But if I can save a day, investment banking will never work on tomorrow. There's nothing like tomorrow in investment banking. Otherwise, some animal will crop into and spoil your transaction.
Nice.
It is only about management again. What big deal do we do? Sometimes I think. We only ask the tax guys. We only ask somebody. That's how it is.
Yeah. Last question. So there are a lot of founders who will be watching this. And Ahmedabad mein, M&A, there are some exciting startups which are required by larger organizations. So founders who may want to create a wealth, or एक stage आता है, not for everybody, but for a certain set of founder who M&A वाला phase आएगा. So what are the things that you would recommend them? कि ये चीजों का ध्यान रखना. When the M&A phase comes, that will become handy to you.
I can give 1-2-liner and then
please.
You can add. See, sometimes when a founder comes to an investor and says that, here is my company I developed, I have an idea, I have this total addressable market, etc. And then he gives a feeling that I am here to sell it to you. That will never work. I am here and I want to see your skin, your passion and your emotions in the business. You have to be flexible that if tomorrow you to be smaller investor or smaller holder of the equity. But when I meet people, then they tell me that I have planned to sell this in 3 years. We will both make money out of this. I won't rely on such founders. So founders' first advice is don't make a business thinking that I'm going to sell it.
Hmm.
You may need to sell it, you may want to sell it later at a stage, but passion will not be seen when it comes to that.
At
Yes,
the time
we'll
of
make the
investment.
business sell. I keep on selling businesses. Very good. We have seen so many very successful people. So very important part. Two is say what it is. The disclosure. The first thing that I tell all my sell side is show me the pain points in your business. I will write that pain points first whenever I'm talking to the buyer. Your life would be so easy. Everybody, there is a pain point. Now I have already disclosed the pain point. I could have some big old VAT liability. I could have a problem with my IP. Then there would be a solution discussion rather than disclosure that you did not do and the transaction goes. Reputation comes into play when you do not disclose and upfront. Disclose even before anything happens. Abundant disclosure is what founders have to understand.
Okay. Good.
Anything.
Okay, so if there is a founder looking for an exit, whether they have raised money or not, again, if they've raised money from investor, there is a different way to think about it. If they haven't raised money, they have bootstrapped their own. There is a different way to go about it. But idea is that the organization should be built from that point onwards in a way that if they leave, the business will still carry on. Meaning the second line would have to be built if it's not there. If they still have to take a lot of decisions, then that second line is not in existence. Let's say, for example, India Biz for sale. If someone wants to sell, someone wants to take a mandate, if they still have to take an approval from me all the time, they have doubts, they can check. But if they want to take a decision, they should be able to take decision. If they are able to take the decision, there is a second line. Second, if they want to give special discount, they should be able to do it. If that's not happening, then I'm still there in the business, attached with the business. So if they want to exit from the business, the first thing they'll have to do is build a team which can take care of the business for the transition or maybe going forward. Second is obviously cleaning all the books. That is obviously everyone would say. But the third is also build a narrative. Building narrative may take 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. So having patience and building narrative for exiting a business, going to someone that I want to sell, rather we build a picture such a way that someone would come and tell you that, hey, listen, I'm interested to do business with you. And that is where, you can create that kind of environment where people come and talk to you about your business. So if you have the luxury of that kind of 2-3 years time, then I would say that focus in that way may help them to get a good exit. But if they don't have time, they don't have that luxury, then obviously they'll have to do what they can do in that short period of time. But yeah, building everything clean, and what Savan bhai said, amazing advice. They're writing all the challenges and negative points of the business on the face of it. Then investment banker can create preempt that the whole thing, so that you don't invest so much time with someone who would have issue with any of those problems massively. Yeah. So yeah, I think that's about it, I guess.
Thank you so much, both of you. This was
Pleasure.
super fun and very insightful. और देखते रहिए, सुनते रहिए रेडियो LJ 90.8 FM.